it proves a couple of things. I mean, the first is that legislation that the Congress just passed and the President just signed indeed does not go far enough. It's a very small first step, but it's also a big break in what had been a lock impasse. The Republicans are definitely against any sort of measures that would bring control to guns and that would bring down the number of assault weapons that are sloshing around the country. The other thing that it proves is that the beat goes on. No matter what happens, the United States is enthralled to guns and gun culture. That probably is not going to change no matter what Congress does in the short term. The third thing it proved was that the legislation that Congress passed was dead on arrival after the Supreme Court overturned a 100-year-old New York law that would have prohibited open carry wherever you wanted to be in that state. And that was a reflection of what's going on in this country, in that the right seems unwilling or unable to give up their grip on firearms for whatever reason. I have a couple that I suspect, but for whatever reason, this is something that is immovable almost on the right. There was a minor set of movement in Congress, but it didn't go far enough, and it won't go far enough as long as we have a majority of Republicans that refuse to do more.
We read very often that Republican congressmen and women believe that it would cost them too much politically to embrace far-reaching efforts to reduce gun violence. Yet we see poll after poll telling us that there is more broad public support for universal background checks. In some instances, that support goes up to 90%. So how does one explain this disconnect over what the people want and what the country's legislature is prepared to do?
I'm not here as a partisan. I may be the only gun owner on this panel tonight. I have a 38 and a double-barrel shotgun. I've never shot at a human. I've shot at plenty of targets. I've been trained to handle both weapons. I had military service training even though I didn't serve. And I'm pro-law enforcement. But the police nor the military are going to be at your house every time something occurs. So to protect my family and our property, I have firearms. A lot of Republicans, as well as independents, and certainly Democrats, support a number of things, and I'll just speak for myself for a moment. Universal registration, close the gun show lobby or a gun show private sale loophole in terms of the exchange of guns moving between family members, red flag laws in all 50 states with some parameters on how you can take someone into custody, and some common sense on some other issues. It's not just a gun issue. If we look at who these mass shooters are, they are predominantly white males between their late adolescent years, 18, 19, and early 20s. What are some of the other influences on these young men? Video gaming and extreme violence, things like Fortnite where you can go on and kill police officers. Pornography, which sets up unrealistic expectations for their social and sexual life, all contributing to mental health problems, which are addressed in the bill that President Biden just signed. Yes, we could go around and confiscate guns right and left. Illinois has some of the most stringent state laws in the nation. In Chicago, among the most stringent gun control laws in the nation. That gun was purchased legally in Illinois from a dealer, not at a convenience store, and yet we still have a problem. I would say it's a much broader problem than just restricting the ownership of weapons, but the only one we ever seem to want to talk about is access to guns. If you outlaw guns or take them away from law-abiding folks, the only people who will still have guns are the outlaws.